Give us a call and let one of our knowledgeable sales staff provide a free in-home consultation on what Manuel can do for you in your home. Be sure to ask about rebates and our financing options. Call Manuel today, 801-262-4671.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
No problems on the freeways, but in Davis County, we do have an accident northbound Main Street at Antelope Drive in Layton, and it is blocking left and center lanes of travel. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, a few more snow showers, then Tuesday will be dry, but there's a chance of rain or snow again. Wednesday and Thursday, our temperatures are going to rise up to the mid-50s. Right now, though, we're at 37 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's not very often that you get to speak to an inside source inside a war zone who happens to be working on ways to secure freedom and democracy and the rule of law. But that's exactly what we're going to bring you today. Early this morning, I had the opportunity to speak with friend of the show and retired D.C. Circuit Court Judge Thomas Griffith, who joined us live from Kyiv, Ukraine. He's part of a delegation to help a new constitutional court system to help rebuild the embattled country, prepare for a brighter future ahead. So many things that we got to with Judge Griffith as it relates to that and relating to some of the news of the day coming out of the Supreme Court and some modeling in terms of things we ought to be doing in our own homes and neighborhoods when it comes to how we communicate about these issues. And so settle in, fasten your seatbelt. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes with Judge Thomas Griffith from Kyiv, Ukraine, for a crucial conversation. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
It is always a gift and a great day here on Inside Sources when we have the opportunity to speak with former D.C. Circuit Court Justice Thomas Griffith. And Judge Griffith is joining us today from Kyiv, Ukraine. Not every day we get to have a call from there. And Judge Griffith, welcome back to the show. And we got a lot of ground to cover. And I want to start with, what are you doing in Ukraine? And give us a little sense of what's happening.
Sure. I've been appointed to a body that's called the Advisory Group of Experts. It's 6 Ukrainians and 6 international legal experts. We're actually helping the government of Ukraine vet justices for its constitutional court. It's really part of an extraordinary process that Ukraine has undertaken to get its judiciary to where they want it to be. And so they brought in folks from outside. We've got experts from Slovenia, from Ireland, from Spain, from Poland, and from the United States to participate in this really remarkable process, working with Ukrainians to help strengthen the rule of law in their judiciary.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more important. And this is some of that behind the scenes, hard work, heavy lifting, far from cameras and interviews and headlines, but this work of helping them really establish that constitutional court, strengthen the rule of law. Those are things that we so take for granted here in this country, and so important that we're helping. I think it's part of American leadership and democracy's leadership around the world to be able to say, hey, we can be helpful in these situations.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the bad news here is they need help. Their judicial system needs help.
Yeah.
The good news is they recognize that,
Yeah.
and they're working hard to try and get it. Again, it's really extraordinary to allow international folks to come in and have a say
Yeah.
in the selection of the justices for your constitutional court. It's really a remarkable effort, and I'm working with just some of the finest people that you could imagine. So great experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. Speaks volumes of how the world sees your ability to observe and apply the rule of law, compassion, and freedom in a constitutional republic. I think those are just extraordinary conversations and things that often go unheralded, but things that have an impact on freedom in ways. We always talk about military might. We always talk about those kinds of battles. But these are the battles that really sustain and strengthen a democracy over time. So important. And I want to go to some of your observations. You and I were texting early this morning, early for me over here. It was late afternoon for you there in Ukraine, talking about the ruling today by the Supreme Court, a 9-0 decision on the former president being allowed to be on the ballot in Colorado. And, of course, that had implications other places as well. Give us kind of your high-level view of that, and then I want to dig into some of the comments from the justices.
Sure. It will have to be a high-level view because I have not yet read the full opinion. I was in one of our hearings here and furtively glanced at my cell phone because I knew the opinion was going to be handed down, and so saw that it was handed down, saw some of the comments, and have made a very quick read. But I'm not expert in it. But what I will say is this is a tough legal issue. I'm not an expert on the 14th Amendment or Section 3. But this is uncharted territory in many ways, and I know there are people who I greatly admire who have very different views about what this provision of the Constitution means and how it should be applied. And those views don't fall along partisan lines. I mean, I know scholars who are not fans of Donald Trump in the least, who are persuaded that Colorado got it wrong. I know people who are fans of the former president who think Colorado got it right. So in many ways, it doesn't fall. A lot of the discussion doesn't fall along partisan lines. It's a tough issue. It's a tough issue, and so the very high level comment that I'll make is I have read Justice Barrett's concurrence, and I really agree with her language that the big picture here is that it was 9-0. That it was 9-0. I like that because it confirms what I saw on the D.C. Circuit and what I've seen at the Supreme Court and what people like Justice Breyer have told me about how things work on the Supreme Court, and that is the partisan narrative that we hear so often that predicts how a judge or a justice will rule based on the president who appointed him or her. That just doesn't work. I know partisans and many in the media want to make it work that way, but it just doesn't work. Judges just don't think that way. And so I had an interesting exchange with one of my Ukrainian colleagues when we had a break, and everyone was buzzing about the news of the decision. And my Ukrainian colleague, had to speak through an interpreter, was trying to make sense of this. And the question that he asked made it clear that he thought that the Supreme Court was ruling in a way that it wanted to help Donald Trump be reelected. That's what the story of this was. And I had to explain to them, no, that's actually not how they think. They're not sitting there thinking, what can we do to help his candidacy, to block his candidacy. That's not it. They were grappling with a difficult legal issue that happens to have momentous consequences now, and I think that's a really important message to get out there.
It is.
Now, some will say, that's naive. They're just partisans in robes, and I'm telling you, I've been in the room where it happens, and it's not naive. I'm not. I'm too old to be naive. I'm not naive. I'm telling you, that's what I have seen up close on these decisions. Now, do judges and justices sometimes make mistakes? And
Sure.
Sure they do. I'm not claiming they're perfect, but most of the time, almost all the time, they don't think of themselves as partisans. They're just trying to get the law right.
Yeah, and getting it right is what matters, and getting through that process in the right way. If you're just joining us, we have Justice Thomas Griffith on the line with us from Kyiv, Ukraine, doing some important work over there as it relates to helping them vet and go through a process to have their constitutional court. We're also talking about this decision, a 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court today in the Colorado case about ballot access, the 14th Amendment relating to former President Donald Trump. And I want to go back to Justice Amy Coney Barrett's opinion as she laid it out after the decision. Again, a 9-0 decision, which I think was so significant. And I want to just read this, Judge, and have you react to it, because I think this has been so important in your thinking and your influence in terms of the direction of the country and the kind of conversations we need to have in the country. Justice Barrett wrote, "In my judgment, this is not the time to amplify disagreement with stridency. The court has settled a politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election. Particularly in this circumstance, writings on the court should turn the national temperature down, not up. For present purposes, our differences are far less important than our unanimity. All 9 justices agree on the outcome of this case. That is the message Americans should take home." I love that.
I do too. That's powerful. I'd like to have that, put on every sweatshirt and T-shirt.
Chiseled in granite. Can we?
Chiseled in granite and put on, over the entrance to every public place or private place in America. I just think I think it's powerful. I think it's, first of all, I think it's accurate. And I hope it's widely read. I hope people take it to heart, because I think it's critically important. That the legal reasoning, as important as that is, I don't want to ever give short shrift to the fact that legal reasoning needs to be coherent and principled. I don't want to give short shrift to that. But even that is not as important as the message that's sent with this unanimous decision, and the message that we need to tone things down.
Yeah.
And so, again, I can't think of a more timely and important message than the one Justice Barrett just delivered to us.
Yeah, I think this is so important. We're going to keep coming back to this throughout the day today, because I do think the differences are far less important than our unanimity. And I want you to just talk to that for just a second, Judge. This idea, a 9-0 opinion, everybody says, everyone always thinks of the Supreme Court as a 5-4, and it's all political, and it's all, culture war stuff and all of that. But the vast majority of the rulings on the court are 9-0, 8-1, 7-2 in that space.
Exactly.
Just talk to that for a minute for us.
I don't have the figures at my fingertip, but the 5-4 decisions come down. There are a handful of decisions. Now they tend to be on some pretty contentious issues, right? Because they're tough things to get agreement on, and justices have different views about how to read the Constitution, how to apply a statute. I mean, there are genuine differences about that. But here's the thing: those differences are not partisan. They're not. Again, they're not one side trying to advance the goals of an administration and the others to retard. I get to teach a class each January at Harvard Law School on the role of an Article III judge and the role of a federal judge, and I had Justice Breyer come to my class just in January, a couple of weeks ago, and he spoke about this issue. Now, look, Stephen Breyer is a center-left progressive, right, politically, and yet he said, and he was on the court for a long time, he said just this thing. He said, no, our decisions are not partisan. He said they're based on law. Now, once again, you could say, well, he's lying. I don't think so. You could say he's naive. I don't think Steve Breyer's naive. Or you could say, wow, maybe things are different than the way it's portrayed by the media and by partisans. Maybe the courts actually work the way Stephen Breyer claims. And I'm here to give my little witness from my time on the D.C. Circuit. 15 years I was on the D.C. Circuit. That's exactly what I saw. I did not see partisans in robes. So I think it's really important what Justice Barrett emphasized. This is 9-0. That's the big news right now. The big news right now. And you can quarrel with the reasoning, and let's do that. We're Americans. Let's disagree. But don't miss the big picture. And the big picture here is that it's on a tough issue. It's 9-0, and it didn't fall along partisan lines.
We're going to stay with the conversation, my conversation from earlier today with Justice Judge Thomas Griffith from the D.C. Circuit Court, retired. He is in Ukraine. He's in Kyiv, helping them with their constitutional court system. That sounds like a good thing to do on a Monday. But we're going to go a little deeper when we come back in my conversation with Judge Griffith, talking about how we often conflate what the partisans and what the politicos say versus what actually happens in some of the most important conversations in the country. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Over the years, I've talked a lot about hard water takes years off the life of water heaters and other appliances in your home. Leaves scum on the shower walls, and you almost need a jackhammer to remove that. I've talked about how Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are maintenance-free. You just don't need adjustment, and they do the job with 2/3 less salt than other softeners. But today, I want to talk about the exhilarating feeling of stepping into a hot bath or shower and feeling that pure, soft water cascade over your skin. It feels like every pore in your body wants to stand up and start singing. And afterward, there are no itchy hard water deposits sticking all over you. You really should look into a soft water system from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. You can learn more about Connecticut by giving them a call at 801-576-8600 or log on to Softwater Utah. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. Then sit back and enjoy your shower even more.
The Cougars are fighting for their best chance in the Big Dance.
BYU's displayed its resiliency throughout this campaign.
The Big 12 tournament is days away, and then it's the NCAA tournament. This Wednesday, it's BYU, Iowa State. Pre-game is at 5 and tip-off at 6 on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
This year, wouldn't it be great to stop dealing with thin, brittle, shedding hair and instead have the thick, healthy, gorgeous hair you've always wanted? Well, now you can by using Hair Volume from New Nordic. Hair Volume is the all-natural solution trusted by millions of women around the world to say goodbye to thin, brittle, shedding hair. Look for Hair Volume at your local Walgreens and CVS or online at Amazon.com or NewNordicUSA.com. Go to NordicUSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Hair Volume at your local Walgreens or CVS.
Making an Impact, sponsored by Granger.
A historic donation just made tuition free at Albert Einstein School of Medicine.
For a minute, I was just staring blankly, like I was processing. But then I started to think about what it could mean for my family and taking care of my mom throughout medical school and being able to take care of her after I graduate financially.
For the ones who get it done, Granger offers professional-grade supplies and solutions made for every industry and backed by product experts. Call clickgranger.com or just stop by.
Furnishing our living spaces hasn't changed much in decades. Until now. Euromax authentic European furniture starts with the room. Cabinets, sliding doors, dressers, and desks that are as smart as they are sleek and modern. Combining classic European design, exceptional quality American craftsmanship with convenience, comfort, and technology. Euromax declutters your space, designing entire walls of elegant, smart, and stylish storage, taking beautiful advantage of every inch. Living rooms, bathrooms, kitchen, and bedrooms. Features like concealed wiring, built-in charging, integrated lighting, automation, and tech. Sustainable, eco-friendly furniture built for your lifestyle without compromise. Construction, finish, and hardware feature a lifetime warranty. Prepare to be excited about your living space. See it in action at EuromaxFurniture.com. EuromaxFurniture.com. Euromax, built for you.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, now that you've shoveled your walks, you might appreciate knowing that Utah's snowpack is just about average for the year with a month left in snow season. Second, parts of Interstate 80 through Nevada and California that were closed over the weekend are open again today. Third, former President Trump celebrating a win in the U.S. Supreme Court that keeps him on primary ballots going into Super Tuesday. And right now, we're at 37 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Well, if you're just joining us, we started the show today with the first part of my conversation from earlier today. It was early morning here. It was into the evening in Kyiv, Ukraine, where Judge Thomas Griffith, of course, friend of the show, retired D.C. Circuit Court judge. We often refer to the D.C. Circuit as the second highest court of the land in relation to the Supreme Court. And Judge Griffith's doing an extraordinary work. You're going to want to go back and listen to the podcast from the first segment of the show, talking about what he's doing there as Ukraine tries to bolster and strengthen its constitutional Supreme Court in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it, rooting out corruption, making sure it can really stand the test of a democracy. Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. And now we're going to continue the conversation with Judge Griffith from Kyiv. Again, not very often you get the inside source inside a war zone and a secure hotel. And we went on to talk about the kinds of conversations that both happen on the current court with an amazing conversation he had with Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Amy Coney Barrett last week in Washington, D.C., and how we can use that as a model for all of us to think differently and have different kinds of conversations right here in our own country.
They have very different views about how to read the Constitution, how to read the statute. They have very different views, but we had them together for an hour at the National Governors Association last week, where they spoke about the importance of collegiality on the Supreme Court. And the fun thing for me was to hear the stories of the personal interactions that they have one with another that has created genuine bonds of affection between one another. And it's not just the two of them. It's among most of them that they actually like one another. Now they can be annoyed. They get really annoyed at opinions that they disagree with, but it's never personal. They'll go to lunch together the next day and talk about sports and movies and grandkids and all those sorts of things. And they'll go to dinner with one another and they'll be friends. They have genuine affection. Now, it hasn't always been that way on the Supreme Court, but it is that way for this court and this particular group of nine. My favorite story comes from Justice Barrett and Justice Sotomayor, their relationship. Justice Barrett had just been confirmed to the Supreme Court. She had taken the oath. She hadn't yet sat to hear a case, and by her own accounts, she was feeling pretty overwhelmed. Her husband was about to leave to go back to South Bend, Indiana, where their 7 kids were, who she hadn't seen in a while. She was facing a couple of months without them, and she was feeling a little overwhelmed when there was a knock at the door of her office, and into her office comes Justice Sotomayor with a large bag of Halloween candy for the 7 Barrett kids for her husband to take back to South Bend. And those sorts of gestures multiply. They happen a lot. And you can imagine at that moment, a deep friendship was created that more significant and I think more important than the differences of opinion that they have about the law. So, no, it was a wonderful experience. The governors loved it. They gave them a standing ovation, and we all loved it. It was really, really remarkable. So I'm hoping they keep doing things like that because it was so good to see.
It's so good, and it's so important because we often miss those, and often it is those hallway conversations. We had the former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, in town last week, and she came in studio and sat for an interview, and it was during a hallway conversation where she talked about her time at the UN. And very similar, it immediately brought back this remembrance of the conversation between Justices Sotomayor and Amy Coney Barrett. And she said that when she was an ambassador, every week she and her husband would invite over an ambassador from another country, including, and she was very quick to point out, including the ambassador from China, the ambassador from Russia. And she talked about how important it was that even when you have to have hard conversations with someone who is usually an adversary, if you have a relationship with them, it's different. And she said they wouldn't talk geopolitics. They wouldn't talk about anything else. They would talk about their kids and their grandkids and what was happening at home. And I think that's an important model.
You know, when Justice Breyer came to my class, and it was a very informal setting, he shared with the class a quote that I had not seen before, and I won't be able to quote it exactly, but it's from Abraham Lincoln in his temperance speech given to the Temperance Union. Can't remember the date, but anyway, there's the gist of it was Lincoln says, "You're not going to be able to persuade someone unless they're your friend," and you know, social scientists say that's true. That it's almost impossible to persuade somebody of anything the only people who succeed at doing that is when there's a relationship formed and friendship's part of it. So that, again, we shouldn't confuse this with, lack of disagreement. Yeah. That's not the point.
Right.
It's how we disagree, and to get the contempt out of it and see that there's a human being who's taking views different than you do, and just because they're a human being, we ought to listen carefully and try and understand what they have to say. Yeah. And if we're going to succeed at this effort, it's only going to be because we develop that characteristic and that virtue. Yeah. If we keep going on the path we're down, I'm a little bit worried. But hopefully, people like Justice Barrett and Justice Sotomayor and others across the political divides will point us the way that we're trying to create a more perfect union. That's right. And the Constitution exists to create unity across diversity. So.
Fantastic. As always, Judge Thomas Griffith giving us great insight and perspective. Today doing it from the other side of the world, over in Ukraine, doing important work relating to their constitutional court there, and as always weighing in on how we actually look at things like the rule of law and compassion and relationships and all of that, as you said, Judge, that the Constitution is set up to create that more perfect union and create that. Thank you so much for making time on a very busy day for you. Be safe over there in Ukraine. That's the work of the angels over there, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Thanks so much, Boyd. Always good to talk to you.
That's Judge Thomas Griffith, retired from the D.C. Circuit Court, dialing in today from Kyiv, Ukraine. Important work going on over there in terms of the judiciary. Important conversations right here at home as we look at important decisions that have been handed down from the Supreme Court. And why they actually matter. I loved that Amy Coney Barrett said that it's time to not amplify disagreement with stridency, but that our differences are far less important than our unanimity. And in challenging times, in difficult circumstances, we have to be able to have that kind of debate and that kind of conversation. Big thanks to Judge Griffith, and we'll return. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. Residents of South Jordan still cleaning up from mountains of tumbleweeds that invaded their streets this weekend, blocked garages, and piled up against homes.
South Jordan brought in a backhoe and 7 dumpsters over the weekend, 4 15-yarders and 3 double that size. And Mayor Dawn Ramsey says even after 13 trips to empty all of them at the landfill, they're still picking up tumbleweeds. She tells David Dujanovic most of the weeds collected on the western edge of Daybreak, where undeveloped land allows them to tumble freely, sometimes a little too freely.
That's KSL News Radio's Becky Bruce reporting. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Trump taking a victory lap at his Mar-a-Lago estate today after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the ruling from Colorado that removed him from that state's primary ballot. Trump praising the justice's important decision that he says will unify the country.
I think it's a very big day for America. I think it's a very big day for liberty, and I think it's just a great day for this country.
The court ruled the states can't use the 14th Amendment to disqualify someone from running for president. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down on the day. The NASDAQ is just barely down for the day. And our KSL weather looks like we're going to finally be done with the snow showers later today. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Starting with one store in 1978, Boot Barn has become the largest Western and workwear retailer in the nation. Supporting those who feed, build, and protect America, we offer the largest selection of cowboy boots, work boots, Western wear, workwear, and outdoor gear. With over 500,000 pairs of boots and thousands of top-quality jeans and clothing, it's an honor to support the people who make our country so great. Boot Barn. Keep West.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
No problems on the Valley freeways. We do have a report of a possible accident. 900 west, 100 south. Save up to 20 cents off per gallon using Sinclair's DinoPay app. Find a Sinclair station, store amenities, purchase history, and enjoy a simple, secure way to pay for fuel. Download the free app today. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Our KSL weather, we will see a few more snow showers today. Then Tuesday will be dry, but there's a chance of rain or snow again Wednesday and Thursday, and our daytime temperatures will rise into the mid-50s. Right now, though, 37 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes today with a special preview ahead of tomorrow's big Super Tuesday, March the 5th. We're going to start at the national level. We're going to talk about what's happening there, what to be watching for, how Utah will play into Super Tuesday. And then coming up at 1:50, we're going to break it all down in terms of what you need to do to have your voice heard, to have your vote counted, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum. We'll be joined during that 1:50 segment by both the chair of the Democratic Party and the chair of the Republican Party, so you can get all the information you need to have your voice count and show up and do your job, your duty, to participate in the process. But let's begin our special preview of Super Tuesday on the national level and what's at stake. It is a big Super Tuesday. It is always a big day, but this year in particular. Remember, let's start on the Republican side. On the Republican side, the magic number to become the nominee is 1,215 delegate votes. That's how many you have to have. Right now, you've got the former president, Donald Trump, at 244, and Nikki Haley, former ambassador to the UN, at 43 delegates. Again, they're both a long way away, but tomorrow, 15 states will vote, and 865 Republican delegates are up for grabs. So this will be the most significant moment in the 2024 election cycle for Republicans, because it will show if there's any path for someone like a Nikki Haley, or if the former president will really start to lock things down, moving towards securing the nomination. So we're going to watch all of that as we roll through Super Tuesday tomorrow. I thought it was interesting last week. Of course, Nikki Haley was here in the state of Utah. We had the opportunity to sit down with her on set for Sunday edition for KSL 5 TV. We shared some of that with you here on KSL News Radio as well. But as she made her pitch here in the state of Utah, both down at Utah Valley University and at other places, she talked about the need for a kind of Republican nominee that is about addition, not subtraction. She described the former president as not realizing he's got to add groups of people, not just subtract and offend those who might disagree. Here's how she described it.
When you're running for president, this is about addition. It's about bringing as many people in as you can. It's not about pushing people out of your club. And that's why he won't win a general election, is because he's not humble enough to realize you need them.
So I think that's a really important piece. And again, regardless of how you feel about the former ambassador or the former president, that's an important political principle to understand, is that it's one thing to win a primary in the spring, but it doesn't do you any good if you don't win the general election in the fall. So Nikki Haley is saying, look, if the former president is just going to cut people out or take shots at people he is against, it's hard to build the kind of coalition in a pretty evenly divided country when it comes to presidential politics to actually win in the fall. It has to be about addition. If you're a campaign strategist, you have to be thinking every day, not about just the base of your political party. You have to be thinking about who else can we invite in? What other groups, maybe on the fringe, what other groups may really agree on one particular issue? Is that something we can go share with them or invite them to become part of in terms of a story? And so I thought that was an interesting nuanced piece there from Nikki Haley to say you can't be about subtraction. You have to be about addition to win a general election. She also put some more context into the former president and some of the losses that Republicans have had in 2020 and 2022.
At some point, Republicans and Americans need to look at the fact that maybe if we keep losing, maybe Donald Trump is the reason we keep losing. Because if we don't see that, we're going to end up falling to the socialist left.
So again, looking at some of the compare and contrast there. Now, for the former president's part, of course, he had a big victory today at the Supreme Court, and he took to the podium today to compliment the Supreme Court on their 9-0 decision, which, of course, was very important to him because it suspends all the other lawsuits that are out there in terms of trying to remove him from the ballot by way of the 14th Amendment. And so that is a very good day, very important day for the Donald Trump campaign, that they don't have to worry about dealing with those particular suits right now or any of those efforts to get him off of the ballots in all of those different states by way of the 14th Amendment. So that's a good day for the former president, for sure. It was also interesting, again, going back to our conversation with Judge Griffith, who's over in Kyiv, Ukraine today, talking about how people across the spectrum have very different feelings about the ruling, and they're not what you think. A lot of people who are very excited and very pro former President Trump were very against the ruling of the Supreme Court. And some of those who are very much against the former president were very much for the way the Supreme Court ruled today. So another important thing, that it's not always the partisans that we like to turn everything into these days. It's not just the politicos and the partisans. Sometimes you've got judges who actually just get down to the merits of a case and what matters in interpreting it as it relates to the Constitution. So that was all important stuff today, to be sure. And then one other component from the Nikki Haley campaign, she was on Meet the Press yesterday with Kristen Welker on NBC, and she highlighted the split in direction. And this is clearly a challenge for Republicans. The Republican Party is not a unified party, again, regardless of those who fit inside of it or where they fit inside of it or whether they feel they have been nudged out of it. It's the contrasting policies that I think are the real issue, and that was the case that Nikki Haley was trying to make rolling into Super Tuesday.
This is about really trying to get everyone to realize that this primary isn't between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. Yes, on the ballot, that's what you see. This primary is, what is the direction of the Republican Party? Are we going to go where you had Donald Trump
He grew government. He didn't reduce the size of government. He put us $8 trillion in debt in just 4 years, more than any other president. And you're seeing a Republican Party follow him into that wasteful spending, not talking about fiscal discipline. This is about Donald Trump, who believes that you should be more of an isolationist, that America doesn't need friends. That's his focus. My focus is we need to start respecting taxpayer dollars. We need to reduce the size of government. We need to put those resources more in the hands of the people. We need to start focusing on getting our kids reading again. We need to secure our borders and be a country of law and order. And we believe in peace through strength, which means our focus is to prevent war. That's two very different Republican parties.
So those are the things from the specific candidates there. Just for some perspective as it relates to Super Tuesdays, in terms of how important they are, what does it really matter? Back in 2016, the Super Tuesday of that day really was the moment when then candidate Donald Trump really seized control of the Republican Party. He won 7 out of 11 contests that were held on Super Tuesday 2016, even though he didn't take Texas that day, he really got the momentum rolling, and that was really the beginning of the end of the 2016 cycle. Now, in 2020, candidate Joe Biden, won 10 of the 14 contests on Super Tuesday, and from there, he pretty much coasted the rest of the way in a really unique 2020, middle of the pandemic kind of election year. So we're going to watch all of the storylines as they begin to emerge. We're going to continue to look at places like Michigan that had their primary late last week, looking at what does that mean. That will be a battleground state in the general election, which will really matter for both Democrats and Republicans. Really crucial stuff, and so we'll see what's happening underneath the hood in those spaces. That's an important one. And then when we come back from the break, we're going to pick up with what happens right here in the state of Utah. We are part of Super Tuesday. We'll have the chairs of both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party here in the state coming up next. Tell you what you need to do to be part of Super Tuesday tomorrow. Stay with this special coverage here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border, and nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory, but President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Would you like to be part of an important research study and receive up to $550? The Beehive study at the University of Utah is comparing how well 2 different FDA-authorized booster vaccines protect people against COVID-19. You can decide to get a booster or not and still participate. By joining the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for completing activities such as weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at www.beehivestudy.com.
Visit the contest page on KSLNewsRadio.com. This week, win tickets to comedian Jim Gaffigan on the Barely Alive Tour, Friday, October 25th at the Eccles Theater. Or win tickets to an upcoming Real Salt Lake match. Listen to the RSL game on KSLSports.com. Plus, win tickets to see Tim McGraw on his Standing Room Only Tour, April 5th at the Delta Center. Text the word contest to 57500. Or go to KSLNewsRadio.com/contests.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
If you know me, Hans Olsen, you know my wife's the most important thing in my life. What she wants, I deliver. And it looks like we're getting new cabinets. I took her to the Euromax cabinet showroom in Pleasant Grove, and she hasn't looked at me the way she looked at those cabinets in 15 years. Doors that close quietly with the press of a button, LED lighting inlaid, waterproof box, shelves, and doors that won't warp from moisture. Every color and design imaginable for those doors. Simply put, the most magnificent cabinets your eyes will ever behold. Mike and Max combined a vision of over 35 years of experience to bring us Euromax. Max with his Ukraine roots, and Mike with 25 years of installation, it delivers the greatest in cabinet design, building, and installation. Truly, my amazing wife was in awe. We both were. And if I have to buy her love, I will. Go see all the possibilities at EuromaxFurniture.com. That's EuromaxFurniture.com. Whether you're rebuilding a kitchen or starting a new build, it's EuromaxFurniture.com for your cabinets. Euromax, built for you.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Two friends taking pictures of the rising full moon on a summer night.
Two teenage kids doing what teenage kids do.
When a stranger with a gun and a death wish changed everything.
It was violent, it was senseless, and I will never understand it, I will never accept it.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and unfortunately, we're all too familiar with stories about how violence shatters lives. But what we rarely see is how they are rebuilt. In a new podcast, The Letter, we relive tragedy, but only so we can hear the rest of the story. The struggle to reclaim lives, the realities of grief, and the possibilities of forgiveness.
I believe in miracles. Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, it took heavy equipment and dozens of dumpster loads to clean up all the tumbleweeds that blew into daybreak over the weekend. Second, former President Trump was delighted by the Supreme Court decision that keeps states from disqualifying him for the presidential primaries. And third, even before all the snow is gone, UDOT is beginning a major freeway construction project in Davis County. Right now, 37 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always, and we're doing some special coverage here on Inside Sources, rolling into Super Tuesday tomorrow, and it will have a big impact on the races, not just for president, but it will go much further than that here in the state of Utah, and that's all of our job. Again, we often get so consumed with what is at the top of the ticket that we forget all of the other things that are actually a little bit more where the rubber hits the road when it comes to our daily lives and representation here within the state of Utah. So both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are having caucus meetings on Super Tuesday tomorrow night. Yes, there will be opportunities to vote for president. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the more important things are those things that do happen in our own neighborhoods and in our own local communities. And so in this segment, in our special run-up to Super Tuesday here on Inside Sources, we're going to talk to the chair of both the Republican Party and the chair of the Democratic Party, so you can have all the information you need to actually be able to participate and engage in the process. And so let's start with Rob Axon. Rob Axon, of course, is the Republican Party chair, and he shared with us some of the instructions of how simple it is to participate in the GOP voting process for Super Tuesday.
So the caucus will be happening on March 5th, and that's where any Utahn who is a registered Republican statewide can go to their local caucus, can participate. And this year we actually have a very streamlined and available absentee process as well. So if somebody's health or work or other commitments prevent them from attending caucus in person, they can still participate and express their preference on who they would like the Republican nominee for president to be.
All right. I think that's an important one because, again, some people say, oh, well, I can't be around or I've got to work. Some of us have to be in studio to cover the caucus, and so won't be able to attend the caucus. So tell people how they can go about that. Again, it have to be a registered Republican on the Republican side. Again, Democrats are having a primary this time around. And so if you're a Republican, you're registered, but you can't show up for caucus night, what's the process for that?
Here's the nice thing that we did this year is we streamlined it to be the same starting point. So that starting point is to go to our website, which is utgop.org. So utgop.org. You will see a pre-registration button. It's big and red right there on the homepage. You'll click that button and it will take you about 30 seconds to maybe a minute to fill out your information just to check, one, that you are a registered voter, two, that you're a Republican, and then you get to say you'll be participating in person or you'll be participating absentee. And whichever one of those you select, the confirmation email that you will receive will give you the instructions. So it will provide you with the address and location of your precinct caucus, or it will tell you how you can submit that absentee ballot. So in your case, Boyd, if you're prevented from attending and you otherwise wanted to, you would go through that same utgop.org, select absentee when doing the pre-registration. You'll get the confirmation email to tell you what to do.
That's Rob Axon from the Utah Republican Party. Now I want to shift gears and go to Diane Lewis. Diane gave us instruction on how Democrats can participate in the primary process and the caucus process tomorrow night. Well, it is a thrill to have joining us on the program today Diane Lewis. Of course, Diane is the chair of the Democratic Party of Utah and rolling into big Super Tuesday and beyond. We get so caught up in the presidential elections all the time, and there's so many more things that happen as we roll through and march towards November. And Diane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Boyd. I'm so happy to be here.
We always say that one of the most sacred rights we have, one of the most important duties we have in this country is to participate, to show up, to speak out, to be part of crucial conversations. Tomorrow's obviously Super Tuesday. Give us the broad brush in terms of what's happening with the Democratic Party of Utah and where people need to go, what they need to learn.
Well, we're pretty excited. I'm sure that people have heard that we are having the presidential poll done by mail. The Democrats decided here in Utah to do it by mail. Anybody that is registered as a Democrat should already have gotten a ballot in the mail, and they have until midnight tonight to get a postmark so that their vote will count when they start counting that. However, if anybody's an independent or even a registered Republican and they would like to vote in the Democratic primary, they can go to the polling places tomorrow and they can vote then as well, because there will be some polling places opened. And if you're looking for those in your county, just call your county clerk and you'll be able to find all those.
Okay.
And we also decided that we would do a caucus because that is the best time and the most exciting time to bring Democrats together in our local communities and get to know each other and see how many really Democrats are in the state of Utah, because we have a lot of them, and it's really good to get together and get to know each other. But then they also vote for delegates, not only county delegates, but state delegates as well as we go along. That goes into the convention time. And so tomorrow night, make sure you go to your caucus. Again, go to your clerk's office. We've got all 29 counties going to be doing a caucus night. Some are on Zoom, some are in person. Salt Lake County is doing pretty much all of them in person. Wasatch Front, quite a few Utah counties in person, Weber County, Davis County, all in person. So if you need to find a location, go to your clerk's office, call them, and you can look it up, and you can find out where your caucus is, and that's by your house district.
Oh, fantastic. And so I'm taking away as the big takeaway, there's no excuse to not participate tomorrow. As wherever you are, you can do it one way or another, whether it's in person, whether it's over Zoom. Of course, the vote by mail in terms of the presidential poll, again, you had to be registered as a Democrat, and you would have received one by mail. That's got to be postmarked by tonight. But you can also show up at the polling locations tomorrow. And then also caucusing tomorrow, which I think is so important as you select those county delegates, state delegates. Those are the things that that's where the rubber hits the road and where so many things that impact us every day take place. And I love the way you framed that, Diane, that we have to get to know each other first, and then we can start having conversations about how we make things better. Absolutely love that. Diane Lewis is the chair of the Democratic Party here in the state of Utah. Diane, I know big day tomorrow, and then it gets bigger from there. It's just the end of the beginning in a very busy campaign. We look forward to having you back real soon.
Thank you.
So those are my conversations with the two chairs of the two major political parties, Rob Axson from the Republican side, Diane Lewis from the Democratic side. I think they get along quite well and are really showcasing how we can actually do it a little different here. There are also some of the smaller parties that don't get as much attention. Some of them are having some polls and some caucus meetings tomorrow as well, so you can check those out. But we're going to keep it all rolling, and tomorrow we're going to do the same thing. From 1:35 until 2 p.m., we'll continue to focus on Super Tuesday, and by tomorrow we'll start to get a good sense of what's happening nationally, and then we'll come right back and bring it close to home in terms of what the momentum is, what the swings are, and what the results might be on Super Tuesday. So stay with us on Inside Sources for more special coverage of Super Tuesday nationally and here in the state of Utah. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Big hour number 2 coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Drivers in Davis County can get used to seeing more construction barrels. Today, UDOT is starting a new project on I-15, turning Shepherd Lane into a new freeway interchange, as well as building new roads in western Farmington to connect to it.
It's all kind of our effort to make our system as connective as possible and just make people's lives more convenient.
UDOT spokesperson Mitch Shaw says they'll also build new pedestrian bridges and a pedestrian underpass beneath Park Lane, providing a safe way to walk from the east side of Farmington to the Station Park Mall. Construction scheduled through the summer of 2026. Grantsville police are trying to identify a teen who was found in their city. They say the boy may be autistic, hadn't been able to tell them his name or where he lives. He appears to be about 14 years old, was wearing a black jacket and black pants with a red stripe. They're asking anybody who might know who he is to call Grantsville police. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. JetBlue and Spirit Airlines calling it quits on their proposed merger. ABC's Mike Dubusky has more.
The merger was intended to shake up the industry status quo and boost competition in the airline market, according to JetBlue CEO Joanna Garrity. But after losing an antitrust lawsuit filed by 6 states, the District of Columbia, and the Justice Department, JetBlue and Spirit are terminating their merger agreement. As part of the termination, JetBlue will pay Spirit $69 million. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day. The NASDAQ is also slipped down at this hour. And Our KSL weather looks like maybe a few more snow showers today by the time it's all done. That's next. KSL News Time 2:02.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No, we tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our clients' best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured, so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly, different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Are you looking to get a COVID-19 booster to stay healthy this cold and flu season? If you join the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for getting a booster and completing weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Don't want to get a COVID-19 booster? That's okay too. You can still join the Beehive study and receive up to $550 for completing the weekly COVID tests and surveys. Help advance research at the University of Utah while taking care of yourself this season. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at beehivestudy.com.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
When we're trying to digest the news of the day, we have to remember that instant certainty is the enemy of truth. A flashy headline may distract you from the real issue and the important conversations underneath.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are looking at a nice drive along the Valley freeways. No accidents, no delays. We have had a crash in Utah County way down there by Alberta. This is on Redwood Road, just north of Alberta. But right now, we're not seeing any major delays. For a limited time, open a 12-month certificate from Cyprus Credit Union and get 5.25% APY. Learn more at any branch or visit cypruscu.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather looks like whatever snow showers we've had, pretty much done by now, but things will dry out tomorrow. Then come Wednesday, we'll see a chance of rain or snow again. And right now, we're at 39 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I think we've all noticed how different our disagreements can feel of late. It seems like everyone's pulling from separate pools of information, which leaves no room to be able to really find the nuance in other people's opinions, ideas, or perspective. The kind of healthy competition in the world of ideas that our country's known for has been turned into denying any evidence that doesn't suit your particular argument or point of view, also known as social media. The result is what we have is a growing truth decay in our networks of truth and understanding. Really interesting stuff. Deb Roy wrote a fantastic piece in The Atlantic breaking down this whole phenomenon of truth decay. Now, Deb Roy's a professor of Media Arts and Sciences at MIT, directs the MIT Center for Constructive Communication. And in this piece, Roy goes through all of the particular nuances of truth. And a lot of it goes back to some of the conversations we've been having on this show for a while in terms of the words have meaning and the meaning matters. And it used to be that we could all kind of say, okay, red is red, and we know that's a color, and we know what kind of color it is. But in today's world, especially in the social media space, it could mean 27,000 different things, and it doesn't matter if it's based on science or logic or history. Everyone is deciding for themselves what that particular thing means. And so it's no wonder that our discussions and our disagreements are different, because we've lost that ability to have truth and to have a common set of words and languages that can actually help us get to better understanding, and to have the kind of debate and rigorous exercise of thought and ideas and philosophy that were really the founding of this country. And so being able to connect all of those dots, I think, is a tricky one. So I want to go through a couple of the things that Roy points out in his piece in The Atlantic, talking about this decay of truth. And the first stage of that decay in truth is depicted on kind of a diagram scale in terms of where you get these little fissures and breaks in the system. And he actually goes through and talks about it in the context of gold. I'll let you dig into the full transcript of that and go down some really interesting analysis there. But I want to get to just kind of the baseline to all of this in terms of what it means in terms of having truth, and what that means in terms of trust and trusted networks. Again, when we fail to have a common set of facts or a common set of definitions for particular language, it's no wonder we end up angry, frustrated, and having all kinds of divisive arguments as opposed to reasoned conversations. One of the examples that I often turn to is biblical, and it's an interesting way to look at all of this. Everyone, regardless of religious belief or philosophy or background, everyone has heard of the Tower of Babel. And everyone talks about that, of the confounding of the languages, and this is how we've got all these different languages around the world. But I've heard it framed that Babel was really a story about tribalism, a story about fragmentation of everything, about the shattering of all that seemed solid, scattering the people, scattering the community. And it really is, I think, a really good metaphor in terms of what we're seeing and what's happening now, particularly when it goes to red and blue, Democrat, Republican, those kinds of things. Because everything has become so fragmented that we're losing our ability to have that common truth. And if you don't have a common truth from which to start, it's really tough to get anywhere that you actually want to go, or anywhere that's actually forward moving. And so how do we deal with that? How do we get to that kind of truth? How do we prevent the truth decay? One of the things we always talk about on this show is to avoid the instant certainty. We actually heard about that during the break today. Instant certainty is the enemy of truth. So truth decay often happens when we jump to conclusion, when we have a hot take, or we listen for hours on end to people with hot takes, which is why we don't do hot takes on this show, because they rarely lead us to truth. And they rarely lead us to a place where we can have a better conversation, where we can learn things, where we can learn from those that we disagree with, where we can gain insight, where we can have that moment where you can say, I never thought of it that way before. Or, wow, that's an interesting perspective. Or even further, wow, I wonder why she thinks that's the best solution to that particular problem in society. Or, wow, he has a really interesting view in terms of the root cause of that particular problem. Those lead you to very different conversations than just immediately picking a side, taking a hunkered down view of right and wrong, good and bad, and even evil, because that prevents us from the better conversation. And so if we bring it back and look at how do we do the flip of that? How do we establish connection? Because connection is the real key to all of this. Because connection is where trust begins. So it used to be, and this was pointed out in the Atlantic piece I referenced earlier, that the trusted influencers in a local community used to be the barbers and beauticians, the teachers, the bar owners, the factory floor managers. Those were people that were kind of the connectors in the community that often used the currency of trust. But now you can go through your social media scroll and you can pretty much find anyone you want to agree with whatever it is that you believe. And sadly, because of the way the algorithms work on so many of those social media platforms, it actually inhibits or prevents you from expanding your field of truth or your understanding of a particular issue. Because the more you click on a certain kind of headline or a certain kind of article or a certain influencer's voice, you're not going to get better. You just get more of whatever you've already got. So it does nothing to sharpen your focus. It does nothing to expand your mind or your view of the particular issue. And so then it also creates this false sense of confidence because now you can claim you have multiple sources. Now, you should take into account that your multiple sources have all been served up to you by the social media algorithm that says, oh, she likes that. I'm going to give her more of that because she'll click on it. Or he likes that kind of content. I'm going to make sure he sees lots more of that kind of content today. And so we just keep clicking. And so suddenly we have this false sense of confidence because now we have multiple sources all telling us the same thing, which may or may not be true, by the way. And so that's one form of truth decay. And there's many components to it, but a lot of it has to do with how we are getting so fragmented. And in our fragmentation, we've become far more isolated. And in our isolation, we decide what's true and nothing else matters. No other opinion, no other science, no other anything. Not even influencers matter because we've created our own bubble and then we get to live in it. But it prevents us from actually getting to the truth, which actually leads us to better conversations. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Only one type of burger. For every pallet. Fries are extra. Large in size. We've got the shakes. Going over the brim.
Hey, this is Chris from JCW's. Put a positive, delicious spin on your day at any one of our 5 locations. In Lehigh, American Fork, Provo, South Jordan, or Harriman. JCW's, quality, and a lot of it.
Tomorrow's vote may seal the race for president.
The two major parties in Utah are taking opposite approaches.
Democrats will have a primary election.
United Utah Party and American Independent Party will also be having their caucuses.
It all begins by showing up. Caucus night is the opportunity to do that.
Super Tuesday. 16 states and territories vote, and more than 1,000 delegates are awarded. Listen for special coverage today and tomorrow. Plus, get analysis and reaction all day Wednesday. Utah's Super Tuesday Caucus on KSL News Radio.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Held over due to popular demand. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Tim and Amanda.
Yes, KSL is a trusted institution. I mean, it's a 100-year-old institution, and I know that with that legacy comes a responsibility and a trust. But I want you to know, we have diverse voices at this radio station. Young people, we have people of all different ages, of all different cultural backgrounds, who put their 2 cents into what stories we cover from day to day, a voice that is given to those stories.
When I've been kicking around the Salt Lake City market for 40 years, I felt like I needed a decade of radio under my belt before I even attempted to climb that mountain. So as important as KSL is to you, you need to know that it's an important institution for both of us and something that we take very seriously, in the responsibility of providing the right news and information for you and your families every day and carrying on the tradition of this great radio station.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Bing 19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Managing today's uncertainty can be overwhelming. We crave security, and it's uncomfortable when we sense a lack of control over our lives. Develop a routine for a more balanced lifestyle with healthy habits and fun. Focus on what you can control, even if it's little things, like a before-bedtime ritual.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, UDOT ready to begin work on a new I-15 interchange at Shepherd Lane in Davis County. Second, Grantsville police trying to identify a teenager who turned up in their city, can't tell them his name or where he lives. And third, JetBlue has called off its merger with Spirit Airlines. Federal regulators weren't too happy about antitrust issues. Right now, 39 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. Well, the Biden administration is looking to increase the salary of Head Start educators, closing the pay gap between them and other elementary-level educators. And I think everyone can say, okay, that's a good thing. We want to close some gaps there in terms, especially with those elementary-level educators. But as with all things when it comes to government, there's always trade-offs and there's always unintended consequences that are beyond the headlines. Again, catchy headline is a good thing, but you got to get underneath it. And someone who always goes underneath it, Mackenzie Wilkes, is a K-12 education reporter. She's also the author of Morning Education, Politico Pro's daily education policy newsletter. Great way to get underneath the headlines, by the way. And Mackenzie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start with first what it is that the Biden administration has announced, and then we'll kind of go under the surface a little bit and see some potential ramifications, what we need to be watching.
Yeah. So the Biden administration, under the Department of Health and Human Services, they have this proposal. The plan would see that Head Start educators it will require them to get paid on par with preschool teachers. So the goal is that, they're paid on par with preschool teachers, and over the course of 7 years, they have to show that, they are making progress toward parity with some elementary school teachers. So that would be kindergarten through third grade teachers. And so these Head Start educators, they could see a raise by more than $10,000 with this requirement. And so the pay requirements also extend to other staff like janitors and classroom aides. They can also see a minimum pay requirement under the proposal. And, that is, that can have huge benefits and ramifications for educators. But there is this part of the proposal that, it's going to need money. It's going to need money from Congress. And, if Congress doesn't, appropriate the additional money that the plan requires, we could see cuts to the Head Start program.
Yeah, and so let's kind of flip to that side of it. And again, I think everybody is all for, how do we make sure those folks that are working in those places are getting compensated, that they have good paths forward. And then, as you said, whenever you propose something like that, and you have to have Congress involved in terms of the funding component, which you have to have, if that doesn't happen, then the cuts usually end up on slots. And so in this case, it would actually reduce the number of slots. I mean, that's the only way you could really make the numbers all work if this is the mandatory portion of it. So kind of walk us through, how does that play out? Again, we'll assume that Congress doesn't do their job because they're getting pretty good at not doing their job. If they don't do their job, how does that look in terms of those slots and the impact to how many children can be part of that program?
Yeah, so the plan as proposed, if the plan goes into effect as it is proposed, over the course of 7 years, you will see the number of slots that is funded for the program. That number is going to decrease, and so that number is going to decrease by about 110,000 slots over the course of 7 years if Congress doesn't have additional funding throughout the course of that time period. And I mean, the cost alone, it's going to cost $875 million in new annual dollars for Head Start on top of what Congress is already sort of appropriating for Head Start. And that's just for the wage requirements alone. And so if we don't see that additional money coming in, these Head Start programs, they're going to have to start reworking their budgets. And so with Head Start, you have, they're funded to enroll a certain amount, and then there's this actual enrollment of like how many kids are participating in the program. And so with this, the number of children, they're going to have to rework their budgets and say like, okay, like that money is now going to have to go towards, making sure that we're paying our educators this required amount. Instead of, having using that money for children in the program.
Yeah. One of the other things that you pointed out in your piece that I thought was really astute that we often don't get to, and that is that obviously you have the chicken and egg model of what's really going on here, and if you've got a number of teachers in particular who are leaving that Head Start space, either because they're not earning enough or they're moving on to other things. So then you've got a talent shortage in terms of teachers and administrators. Then you're unable to take as many classes, or you have to increase the class size. Kind of walk us through that cycle, and how do you short circuit that, or what are the levers that they're looking at applying that might change that dynamic?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that HHS and the Biden administration are trying to sort of accomplish with this proposed rule, is that they're trying to say, like, okay, we know that teachers and teachers in Head Start and in the early childhood education and child care space in general, they are leaving the profession, and they're citing low pay, low wages, and that's causing this high teacher turnover. And, they're able to find jobs that are higher paying at, people love to use this, like they can go get paid more at McDonald's than they can teaching. And so what the administration is trying to do here is they're trying to sort of get at that and say, like, okay, like we need to be paying these educators more. And so there is this balance in that there's research that shows, that when there is high turnover, within a program, children get a less than adequate education. And so what they're trying to do here is they're trying to sort of, stop this bleeding. So they're like, okay, let's address the pay issue so we can retain these teachers. And in turn, we can keep students in the long run, keep students enrolled. So they're going to see this sort of enrollment dip at first, but the idea is that, like, okay, in the long run, the program will be stable enough and the workforce will be stable enough that we can support more children in the future.
Fantastic. Mackenzie Wilkes, K through 12 education reporter for Politico. She also authors Morning Education, Politico Pro's daily education policy newsletter. And thanks for getting us thinking a little differently about this, Mackenzie. It is one of those fascinating chicken and egg things, and where those choices end up, whether lawmakers are more likely to prioritize the pay for getting those quality educators, whether it's access to the classroom, more kids in. There's always a tug and pull there. Thanks for helping us break that down today.
Yep, of course.
All right, again, that's Mackenzie Wilkes, K through 12 education reporter for Politico. And she really raised some great elements in this piece at Politico.com. You can check that out today. Because where does it begin and where does it end? And whenever you're dealing with the dynamic of either one-time money, that's often a real gap that creates future headaches and problems. Whenever you're dealing with a Congress that has not proven they can really do the funding thing very well, it's not happening. We're still working on last year's stuff. We should be halfway through this year's stuff in terms of budgeting and allocating of funds. And so then you end up with this really interesting thing. If you have this mandate from the Biden administration that says we got to increase compensation to those that are working in Head Start programs, and that starts to happen, that's going to take money. And then how do you fund it? And as a result, you end up having fewer spaces for fewer children to actually be in the classroom. Somewhere cuts have to be made if funds aren't increased. And so then the whole debate gets pretty circular at that point in terms of educators leaving the classroom. Are they leaving solely because they aren't getting paid enough? And so if that's not fixed, then they're out. And if you don't have enough teachers in those classrooms, then you also have to cut the number of students that are in there. Or if you don't have great educators in those classrooms and things aren't happening in terms of productivity and real results for students, then we just get caught in this vicious cycle. This is an important discussion. It's one we often have here in the state of Utah. It's interesting to look at it from a national level. But always remember, a mandate sounds great. A bumper sticker is a good thing in a political year, and it sounds great. But if the unintended consequence is a consequence that impacts the students, then you got to think again about what you think you know. Great perspective from Mackenzie Wilkes from Politico. Grateful to have her on the show today. We'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Salt Lake City police are calling yesterday's workplace shooting at Varick's Imaging a murder-suicide. The victim in the case was 61-year-old Hae Lee. And officers say the gunman was 55-year-old Miller Bin. Salt Lake City police spokesperson Brent Weisberg says they have victim advocates working with other employees who were on site at the time.
When there is workplace violence, that can have an emotional toll on them, a very profound impact on them. That's why we want to make sure that our social workers and our victim advocates are on scene to help them.
The case is still under investigation, and police are asking anyone with information to get in touch. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Pentagon says it's planning more humanitarian aid and food drops in Gaza after it delivered thousands of meals by parachute this weekend. ABC's Andy Field has the latest from Washington.
The U.S. military dropped 38,000 meals on the beach in Gaza, trying to help relieve hunger as the war continues. Pentagon spokesperson saying the number isn't nearly enough to deal with the civilian Gaza population's acute hunger, and it's planning more airdrops of MREs or meals ready to eat, the same meals that many U.S. servicemen and women rely on in the field.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 97 points, the NASDAQ down 67 at this hour. Looking at our KSL weather, there's still a little bit of snow out there, especially in the mountains, but that's going to taper off. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Join Macy's and Girls Inc. now during Women's History Month and help empower young women and girls. Throughout March, you can round up your in-store purchase to the nearest dollar or donate online to help us support Girls Inc. Since 2020, we've raised over $5.7 million to prepare 220,000 Girls Inc. participants to pursue their dreams. Give back today, shop women-owned brands, and find out how we're creating brighter futures for all at Macys.com/purpose.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. There are a lot of great dads out there. Sometimes those dads get divorced. For more than 30 years, we've represented men in divorce, confronting the pitfalls that could devastate your finances or harm your family relationships. While every situation is different, our goal is to get the best outcome for you and your kids. Visit CordellCordell.com to take the first step.
Offices in Midvale and Clearfield. 1412 South Legend Hills Drive, Suite 200, Clearfield, Utah, 84015. Online at CordellCordell.com.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin up to soft on the potty, less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Roll it back. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always stocked. It's our party vibe.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
A lot of you already know that when it comes to HVAC maintenance, repair, and replacement, no one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services. And if you've been thinking about replacing your old furnace and air conditioner, this ad's for you. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and right now we're having our most popular sale of the year. Here's how it works. When you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it, about $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. One of the reasons this sale is so popular, there are no gimmicks, like you have to buy our most expensive air conditioner to qualify for a free furnace. You could buy our most basic, least expensive air conditioner, and you'd still get a new furnace for just the cost to install it. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services by March 31st and schedule a free estimate. One of our HVAC supervisors will come to your home and explain everything. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Still looking at good speeds on all the Valley freeways. No accidents there. We do have the cleanup of a crash at 900 West 100 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
In our KSL weather, we've still got some snow falling up in Summit County, and the Wasatch Valleys are in good shape right now. Tomorrow should be dry. And then we've got a chance of snow again, rain or snow on Wednesday and Thursday. Right now, 39 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson. On Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, with the level of polarization that we've seen in the political year, it's more crucial than ever that we figure out a better way to have a better conversation in this country. But if we just stick to our corners, we hunker down, we turn a blind eye to alternative opinions, when we have instant certainty, which of course is the enemy of truth and trust, distrust is going to continue, and it will expand in institutions, and it will expand between individuals. And a crucial component to all of that, of course, is free speech. Really interesting reporting coming out from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions about how Americans actually feel about the First Amendment. And someone who's been digging into this, Emma Camp, of course, is the assistant editor at Reason.com. And stunningly, Emma, according to your story and the research that you cited there, almost a third of Americans say the First Amendment goes too far. Dig into that for us.
So these results, where almost a third of respondents to the survey agreed with the statement that the First Amendment goes too far in the right to protect, that result actually isn't all that surprising to me. Now, granted, it's disturbing, but when you think about it, the First Amendment protects a lot of offensive speech. It protects a lot of nasty speech. And so I think people who were agreeing with that statement were probably only thinking of the thing that they find really offensive, really nasty, that's allowed under the First Amendment. But they weren't thinking about how, okay, if you allow the government to ban, offensive speech, you pave the way for them to crack down on, to censor a much broader range of speech that is necessary for our society and our democracy to function.
Yeah, and so let's unpack that just a little bit in terms of, everyone agrees on the high level, but then when it comes to things that we find offensive or things that we disagree with, then suddenly our definition starts to get tweaked just a little bit. So explain that for us in terms of what's the practical tacticals of this? How are we seeing this play out?
So I guess this part is less about the research. The research was just a survey, but sort of my prediction on why people were answering the way they were. I think a lot of people probably don't think about free speech all that much. They don't think about, thankfully we live in a country, probably one of the country in the world with the best protections for free speech. So it's really easy to take for granted. When we can take our free speech for granted, justifying censorship becomes all easier. The vast majority or the heavy majority of respondents in the survey also supported some level of censorship for an idea they found offensive. So the survey asked respondents to rank a series of statements on which ones they found most offensive. So statements like, America got what it deserved on 9/11. And then they asked them, okay, for that statement that you found the most offensive, would you support firing a college professor that held that belief at a local college, or support your town banning a protest with that belief from going on? And most respondents also supported censorship in that case.
I think that's so interesting. And again, it's always when we get most challenged that we have to start really thinking through, how committed am I really to that principle? And I think those numbers are really fascinating to look at. And like you said, some of them are maybe not as surprising as they should be, but they're definitely disturbing when it comes to silencing opposition. From your observations, Emma, and I always appreciate you getting us beyond the headlines of all these kinds of things, what else are you noticing or sensing, again, as you look at this data and as you look at your own unique perch there at Reason, what is it that you're watching, and what is it that you're really looking for in terms of where do we go next as a country when it comes to free speech?
Well, I think for one, the most important thing that we can try to do is support the cultural value of free speech. So we have very strong legal protections for free speech, but it becomes easy to start undermining those when people lose that cultural value. So to me, the difference is that the cultural value of free speech is basically the idea that a wide range of opinion should be basically acceptable to articulate in society. The idea that when you disagree with somebody, what you should do is have more speech, rather, have a debate rather than try to shut them down. That idea that, freedom of speech is a good idea, it's good for society, it's something that people are proud of, that we have so many protections for in this country. Protecting that cultural value is very important. But unfortunately, I think on both the left and the right, we've seen some erosion of that recently. So a good example would be anti-quote-unquote misinformation efforts or COVID type speech restrictions on the left, and then things like
bills that challenge the academic freedom of college professors with like anti-CRT bills on the right. So unfortunately, our partisan actors are often eroding the culture of free speech that's so important for us to maintain.
Yeah, no question about that. And it is the usually the loud and extreme voices on both ends of that political spectrum that get us into trouble. And it's interesting to me because they're usually the ones that are crying loudest for free speech. And yet they're the ones who tend to shut it down, again, whether it's on the far left or the far right.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I think oftentimes partisan politics right now are in many ways are converging. The right and the left are both becoming more authoritarian, and I think for those of us that do care about personal freedom, it's very important to push against that.
Yeah, I love that framing because it's become this wraparound issue where you have the extremes have literally wrapped around in that authoritarian, super hyper populist message that, again, is getting in the way of some of the important conversations, I think, of our time. Emma, anything else that you're watching for, things that we should keep our eye on as it relates to freedom of speech as we move into what clearly will be a contentious 2024 election cycle?
I think kind of two main things are social media age verification laws are becoming very popular. Again, on both the left and the right, there's sort of a bipartisan issue, but again, it's things a lot of people don't like. People don't like the idea of kids spending way too much time on social media and maybe finding stuff that they shouldn't be seeing on there. But in states that have tried to push these laws, a lot of times they do violate the First Amendment because kids have a First Amendment right to access a lot of information. Also, social media sites can't be forced to hide certain content, which a lot of times these laws force them to do. And so I think that's going to become an increasingly important issue. Especially, too, because it's another example of the state trying to act as a parent, right? Like, fundamentally, if a kid is spending too much time on social media, it's an issue that their parents should be addressing.
That's right. Parents should be parents. States should be states. Federal government should do its job. If everybody stays in their lane, I think we can actually do this pretty easily. All right. Emma Capps, the assistant editor at Reason. It's a great piece at Reason.com. You should go check that out today. Emma, as always, thanks for your perspective.
All right. Thanks.
Again, that's Emma Camp, assistant editor at Reason. And there's so many times where we kind of let it go. We think we're for something until we're adamantly against it because it infringes on our beliefs. And I remember sitting in Washington, D.C. With some leaders and talking about what they believed and then talking about freedom. And the freedom to think and to speak on those issues. And is it free just because you get to speak about what you like to? What about someone else? Do we have space for pluralism? And how do we better foster that and frame that and protect that? Because that really is the essence of what it means to be an American. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. More Inside Sources coming up next. Our friends at Hercules Credit Union are always looking out for you. It's always about growing stronger together. They've been doing this since 1946. And right now you have a great opportunity with Hercules Credit Union to get an FHA home loan and home court advantage loans. These loans are backed by the FHA. They're part of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that allows buyers to receive lower down payment, lower closing costs, than with a conventional loan. So competitive rates, down payments as low as 3.5%, all kinds of non-traditional credit accepted, gift funds can be used towards the down payment and closing costs, all kinds of great benefits there from our friends at Hercules Credit Union. It is the Home Court Advantage Loan. All kinds of great options for you to check out there. With our friends at Hercules Credit Union, of course, their locations are in Harriman, Taylorsville, Riverton, and Salt Lake City. And you can always find our friends at Hercules online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border. And nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory. But President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Are you tired of yo-yo dieting? Are you thinking about trying the latest fad prescription drug with their long list of possible serious side effects? Most people don't realize that while you may lose weight, it's just temporarily suppressing your hunger, so as soon as you get off the drug, your frustration and your weight could come right back to haunt you. At slcfatloss.com, we know the secret to quick weight loss and, most importantly, safe and lasting weight loss. Our program has helped over 40,000 clients across the country break the weight loss code. Gone are the starvation diet plans. Our program is healthy weight loss, using real whole foods and proprietary strategies to help guide our clients through their successful weight loss with a roadmap to keep the weight off long term.
This is Maria Chaleos. If you are done being exhausted with the same old stubborn weight problem, Salt Lake City Fat Loss has the answer for you. I've lost 17 pounds in just 1 month, and I've done it naturally and safely. Call 801-450-1882 to schedule your free consultation in person or virtually, slcfatloss.com. Results may vary.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
I just elevated my checking account with Utah Community Credit Union. Tim, I'm so blown away at what I get with my elevated checking account at UCCU. I get so many benefits. I get cell phone protection and roadside assistance. The one that blows me away the most is telehealth. I actually get zero copay telehealth with my checking account from UCCU.
Did you know you also get a 0.25% loan discount? It's one of the many things. And if you like to travel or you're on the road quite a bit, a free ATM nationwide, 30,000 ATM locations that you can use while you're out.
Utah basketball star Walker Kessler and Utah Community Credit Union have come together to announce this brand new elevated checking account with more benefits, more savings, more online protections than ever before.
Yeah, there's even something for dark web monitoring, which I have never heard of before, but you can find out more by just going to uccu.com.
And open an elevated checking account online or stop by any branch.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Would you like to be part of an important research study and receive up to $550? The Beehive study at the University of Utah is comparing how well 2 different FDA-authorized booster vaccines protect people against COVID-19. You can decide to get a booster or not and still participate. By joining the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for completing activities such as weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at www.beehivestudy.com.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, police have released the names of the two men killed in a workplace shooting incident yesterday. The victim was 61-year-old Hae Lee, and the suspected gunman, 55-year-old Miller Bean. Second, there's more going on in Super Tuesday caucus meetings than just a presidential preference poll. And third, the U.S. planning more parachute drops of food and relief supplies in Gaza. Right now, 39 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you on a Monday. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the day today, if you happen to miss the open of the show at 1 o'clock today, we actually spent the first two segments of today's show with a very special guest. I did an interview early this morning with retired D.C. Circuit Court Judge Thomas Griffith. He's a friend of the show. He's come on a number of times on a wide range of issues. Nobody understands the courts or the judiciary as well as Judge Griffith, in my view. Of course, he sat for, I think, almost 15 years on the D.C. Circuit Court, which we usually refer to as the second highest court in the land. It's usually the last stop before things go to the Supreme Court. And he's also someone with a really unique perspective and is admired across the political spectrum, which is such an important component to all of this. So just to give you some framing, Judge Griffith has to be the only person in American history to be the person to introduce judges from across the political spectrum to the United States Senate at their confirmation hearings. Now, normally, if you had a very liberal justice who was going before, say, a Democrat-controlled Senate, you would have a very liberal person or expert introduce them as they begin that Senate confirmation process, just as you would if it was a Republican-controlled Senate with a conservative judge. You would want somebody in that space to do the introduction and tee up the confirmation hearing. Well, Judge Griffith has the unique distinction in that he was the person who introduced Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Senate at her confirmation hearing. And then, not too long after that, as everything changed politically, as President Biden took control of the White House, as the Democrats, of course, were in control of the Senate, it was once again Judge Griffith introducing Ketanji Brown Jackson, now Justice Jackson, to the United States Senate for her confirmation hearing. That's pretty extraordinary, in my view. Well, currently, Justice Griffith is in Kyiv, Ukraine. And he's there for, I think, much of the same reason, because people trust him because he's committed to the law, the rule of law, and the Constitution. And he also understands why we have to be able to have important discussions in this country in a better way. And so he called us from what has to be the most secure and finest bunker in Europe, in Ukraine, where he is there for several weeks, helping the Ukrainian government improve their court, improve their judiciary. I thought it was really significant. He said, the bad news is they really need help cleaning up, rooting out corruption, reframing things when it comes to their judiciary. He said the most important thing, however, is they recognize it and they're asking for help. And so he's been there to both vet justices and to help them get the framing around their constitutional court so they can strengthen the rule of law. Now, to me, that sounds like a country on the path to freedom. They happen to be in the middle of a war zone right now with Russia's invasion. But I thought it was interesting that he was calling in from there to weigh in. And we actually spoke on a wide range of things, including today's Supreme Court ruling. And this was most interesting because I think this applies to a lot of us today. So during one of the breaks over there in Ukraine today, and as people were watching the news of a 9-0 Supreme Court decision in favor of the former president staying on the ballot in Colorado, which of course had implication in other states across the country, those in Ukraine, some of his colleagues said, oh, this is the judiciary trying to help Donald Trump win the presidency again. And Judge Griffith had to go back and explain and said, no. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with how do you very narrowly, very specifically apply the 14th Amendment when it comes to who gets to decide who's on a federal election ballot. And I think a lot of people today here in the United States of America have probably had the same thought. Oh, this is just those politicos in black robes doing things for political reasons. And it's not. It was a 9-0 decision. And we should remember that that is how most decisions are made at the Supreme Court. The most common ruling on the Supreme Court, 9-0, 8-1, 7-2. Those are the most common rulings. We get a lot of focus on a lot of the very hyper-partisan kinds of issues where you have a 5-4 ruling. But most of them are not that way. And this was one of those cases, and I actually want to go back to a statement by Amy Coney Barrett about what happened today and why we have to reframe the way we talk about these kinds of things and get back to that focus that this is not about being partisans. It's not about the politicos shaping the conversation in this country. So Amy Coney Barrett today said, this is not the time to amplify disagreement with stridency. I think that's an important lesson for the day. She said the court has settled a politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election. Particularly in this circumstance, writings on the court should turn down the national temperature, not turn it up. And then she said, for present purposes, our differences are less important than our unanimity. All 9 justices agree on the outcome of the case. That is the message Americans should take home. That's some pretty wise counsel from one of 9 on the Supreme Court today. And I think more important than just a decision that happened in the Supreme Court, it's a model for how all of us